George Orwell wrote, "To see what's right in front of your nose requires constant effort." Learn how to tune out the noise and focus on what you need to do, which is minding your business, self improvement, and getting prepared. Hi, it's the Urban Lady Prepper. I help single moms and solo women with practical emergency preparedness. But of course, all are welcome here to be better prepared for whatever happens next. I've posted and done a podcast about coping with the tactic of flooding the zone. So much information is thrown at us that we don't know which way to turn. When this happens, people tend to stay within their echo chamber as a first layer of defense because it's easier to deal with. We want that place of comfort, reassurance, and validation. But the one thing that not enough of us do is to trust ourselves. Trust our intuition and belief system, holding on to the core of what makes us, well, us, and staying true to it. But one of the biggest reasons we are where we are right now is that we can't mind our own business. Minding your own business means facing your insecurities, problems, and lack of knowledge, rather than always looking for someone else to blame, judge, or fight with. When folks mind other people's business, you have the double effect of people not dealing with their issues and being driven to disrupt the lives of others who are trying to figure out their issues and trying to find their way. Many end up contradicting and invalidating the beliefs they're trying to force on others by doing so. You may be listening to this and wondering, what the hell does this have to do with prepping? It has everything to do with prepping, because doing the self-work and having self-control will help see you through the current situation and whatever is to come. There's nothing more painful than self-work. The 2020 pandemic really started to bring the poison outward. When locked down, people were faced with the consequences of their decisions, such as, why did I marry this jackass? Who are these kids? Did I actually give birth to them? Why did I take this job? I have all this time on my hands now, and I have no hobbies and no interest. Who am I? And how did I get here? They were up close and personal with those decisions without escape, and on top of being 24/7 with their family, they had to deal with themselves. There's a buffer in outside interactions, like working in an office or participating in activities with others. You maintain a veneer of civility by being polite and professional. There's always a distraction, whether it's people talking to you or the work you need to accomplish. You haven't been alone long enough to recognize how short-tempered you are, how unkind you can be, how hateful you might seem, and your self-righteousness. How easily your buttons are pushed in an environment when you don't have to, quote unquote, act nice. Many people realized they didn't like what they saw and faced a choice. They could have taken that time to say, okay, I have issues. I'm parroting conditioned beliefs and attitudes I no longer feel comfortable with. I've made certain decisions not out of true love and good intentions, but because of ulterior motives like physical, emotional, or financial protection. I'm going to take this time to work on myself. I will delve into that dark place and confront the aspects of my personality that aren't so great, and I'll be brave enough to make the necessary changes. When the smoke cleared and people clamored to leave their homes, it became real apparent who did the self-work and who did not. The people who didn't, they didn't do that self-work, were screaming to be let out of the personal hell they created, otherwise known as their home life, and inflicting their frustration on people unfortunate enough to have customer-facing jobs. These angry people acted so tough, but weren't brave enough to face themselves. I've said it before, it's one thing to be a prepper, but it's another to have everything you've ever prepared for staring you in the face. I once mentioned that I'd rather be the bookie than the bettor when predicting what disaster might end the world. That meant I didn't have an answer, and I'm willing to let others take that bet. It could be anything, and it's all happening right now. All the issues I've brought up since my blog's launch in May are occurring. The water problems, the food shortages, the extremism, and the increasing disaster that are becoming harder to contain and recover from. Oh, and what's currently going on in our government. I hope that if you follow me since then, you've taken the information I shared to heart. I hope you've been doing the necessary self-work, confronting those uncomfortable things, and getting your life and business in order to prepare for times like these, because you would be ahead of the curve. If not, it's only a short time before it all turns into a full blown panic, and you won't be in the position you wanted to be. So if you tune out the noise and focus on your preparedness goals, you'll navigate through the static regardless of what you see and hear and will be less distracted by the paths of others. You won't be worried about what someone else is doing. Suppose you have a fixed vision of where you want to be a year from now and are planning your way towards that. In that case, you're less concerned about having pissing matches on the internet, defending billionaires and political leaders who are clearly showing they don't care. When you're that concentrated on what you need to do and what you need to achieve, you don't have the time to absorb the massive amounts of negative information designed to disorient you, make you angry, and overly concerned about other people's lives and choices. We often think the world would be a better place if everyone thought exactly as we do, but that's not how it works. The failure of every regime or belief system that insisted its tenets needed to be followed by everyone, not just its core followers, should prove that. The 1% trying to run things now believe no differently. They think that the general population is stupid and incapable, and that the gift of freedom needs to be monetized and regulated by those with money. Of course, fundamentally, these people are just that, people. They're regular human beings. They're incredibly flawed or just downright awful. They probably aren't much smarter than the next guy. The difference is they have money and power that we don't. Whether or not they'll succeed in taking over our entire existence remains to be seen, and resistance is emerging. But in the meantime, you have to wonder, how wrong are they? The people they exploit lose sight on what would improve their own lives because they remain so consumed with others and wanting those others to suffer. They're minding other people's business. Now that it's clear this suffering exempts no one, it's making the issues that impact us all more real and intense. And with discontent across the board, there's the threat of civil unrest, which many preppers already expect. We Americans were warned that the economy would collapse, and it is. We were warned that there will be higher prices and shortages, and there are or will be. Many benefits we've grown accustomed to may be taken away, leading to desperation we haven't seen in a long time. And no one is immune to this unless you're so rich, those things don't matter. Right now, nothing should be more important to you than being prepared. You must tend to your physical stockpiles, such as your food, water, and the means to maintain and continue access to those things. But if your mind isn't right, if you're not self-aware, if you haven't addressed those things that make you a less likable, agreeable, or capable person in an emergency, you'll find supplies and allies difficult to come by. And that's not what you need. By the way, if you're unsure whether you have the essentials, click the link in the podcast description to get your free Essential Prepper checklist. So, what is the difference between doing self-work and being selfish? Selfishness is what happens when you don't do your self-work. Self-work involves getting to the core of why you have the reactions you do, the choices you made and continue to make. It gets to the heart of your preferences and intolerances and whether they were of your own making, something you adopted as a survival mechanism for comfort, or through conditioning. When you look that much inward, you might realize that you may have had to compromise the very things that make you true to yourself, and whether you contradict your chosen beliefs to maintain a facade. Once you get there, you may realize the changes you need to make will alter your life and relationships. But you'll probably like yourself a lot more and really know who you can trust to have your back because they want your authenticity, not your obedience. Understand that everything and everyone is interconnected, whether we want to believe that or not. And if that statement makes you uncomfortable, one of the first questions you can ask yourself is, why does it? You may be the most secure and have what you need or want right now, but unwilling to be uncomfortable in any way. In that case, you will not be mentally or emotionally ready when there's a disaster or social upheaval. And no one may be willing to give you the little bit of humanity they have left. If you're finding it difficult to cope now, it's only going to get worse for you. Be uncomfortable mentally and emotionally now, and work on your so you can be ready and be the one that keeps it together when it all craps the bed. If you can't face discomfort now, How will you face it when the conditions are even less favorable than they are currently? If you allow too much distraction and don't keep your eye on whatever goal you aim for, you will be less capable of handling life when as the Canadian prepper says, the shizzy hits the fizzy. What's happening now is only scratching the surface of what's coming. I'm not speaking from a place of superiority, but of experience. I am by no means perfect. I absolutely have flaws. The difference between the person I am today and the person I was even 10 years ago is that if I had a reaction or did something that wasn't great or that I could have done better, I truly learned from the experience. Right now, something that I'm dealing with is that I have my health to consider. As a flawed person, I worked so hard on my mental and emotional health that I neglected my physical body. Now I have to pay attention to it or else. Being emotionally and mentally prepared is great, but one must also be physically prepared. If I have to walk a long distance, evacuate, or carry an animal or a child. Prepping requires balance in every aspect. As the saying goes, progress, not perfection. The win is getting started. Something I would do when I found myself reacting was to try and catch myself in it, or better yet, video it. I believe I'm one of those undiagnosed ADHD having Gen Xers. The things I hyper-focus on put me in such a trance that I get snappy when interrupted. I could be downright mean. My patience in general is quite short, and while it's improved dramatically because I worked on it, I still could be better at it. For example, one day I was videoing something outside, and one of my dogs was really getting on my nerves. I don't care how many people show loving videos and pictures of their dogs. They're great, but there's definitely times when they can be a pain in the ass. And one of my dogs, when he's in one of his phases, can be a real mofo. So while filming this video, he did something annoying, and by then I was done with him. I immediately turned and snapped at him. When I played the video back, I was shocked to see my reaction. The look on my face, my body language, how I yelled at him. I felt terrible. I had to tell myself this is what I looked like. Was what he did so awful that he earned that kind of response? I wouldn't want to look and act like that unless someone was threatening me, not merely being annoying. From that point forward, I realized that his personality is a gift because it made me realize those aspects of my personality that still need work. I had to question whether I truly learned to deal with certain stressors or I just removed them from my environment. I'm not sure yet. But when I find myself in a moment that I may not be proud of later, I ask myself that. Am I so angry or upset right now because I truly have a right to be? Or is it because a stressor has reemerged and I still can't deal with it? When I begin to lose my patience with anyone or anything, I think of that moment when I saw how ugly I looked and how much the target probably didn't deserve it. And I keep trying to improve because ultimately, it's not just for me. Becoming a better person will make me more respectful and treat others with more kindness and sincerity. And that can only help me when I need it most. So record yourself if you're trying to find out how you look or act when under stress. Or ask the people closest to you what you do that upset or hurt them. Then brace yourself because it's probably not what you want to hear. Remember, you didn't ask them what they love about you. You basically asked them what they hate about you. And if the people closest to you know you better than anyone else, you should want to improve yourself for you and them more than anyone else. I hope you'll take what I'm saying to heart. Turning inward, educating yourself on your personality, and working on your self-control will help you move forward and prepare better. You'll be calmer, less apt to be led, and less inclined to join the mob mentality. Being sheeple isn't a political party or movement. It's a mindset. To get out of the weeds, have in your mind that you don't need an opinion on everything, that you don't need to chase every piece of bad news down the rabbit hole, and that the people feeding you this information are painfully human and may have their own issues they're not dealing with. Do this, and you won't be so easily moved by people who didn't do the self-work. You'll begin to see the damage. You'll recognize it and have improved discernment of the people, things, and situations you allow into your life. Everything happening now is about power and control. So many things are out of our hands right now. Have the power of control over yourself and your mind. Don't concern yourself about what others are doing. Don't waste your time obsessively consuming material that will upset you or speak to the low hanging fruit of your psyche. Stop defending or appealing to people who don't care about you. Stop worrying about what someone else believes, why that person is a jerk, why that person has what you have, or why you don't have what they have, and what somebody else earns. Who cares? That's not going to improve your situation in any way. Remind yourself that crappy people, situations, and people who live differently will always exist. Don't let them fuel any anxiety or insecurities you have. That's the exact opposite of what you need to be doing right now. We may be unable to change or remove those things, but we don't have to be like those people, allow ourselves to be embittered by circumstance, or strive to damage people we'll never meet. So, to repeat George Orwell, to see what's right in front of your nose requires constant effort. To navigate the current landscape, focus only on those issues that matter to you, those issues that deeply resonate and truly impact your life personally, and any future goals you may have for yourself and your loved ones. The onslaught of information and news is meant to remove your focus from what matters in your life. Latch onto that issue and follow it to its conclusion. Maybe your concern is bodily autonomy. Perhaps it's education, your social security. Maybe you're a veteran. Focus on that because they want everyone to be so distracted that they can't focus. And then they start sliding things by you. You find out later after the fact that it was something really important to you and impacts your future and how you prepare. Focusing on a pet issue or two, getting to the core of what makes you who you are, and working on your weaknesses will do more for you than arguing with strangers online or becoming so exasperated you throw up your hands and tune everything out. That's what they really want. Don't fall for the okie doke. This is why prepping isn't a hobby, it's a lifestyle. Many preppers focus on physical preps, but if you don't have a more stoic perspective and work on the things within your control rather than those that aren't, you'll be swept away in the hysteria. You'll be under the sway of people you don't actually like and end up in an awful mental and emotional place, not understanding how you got there. If these times genuinely call for survival of the fittest, be fit in all ways. If you want to make a difference, feel more secure, and cut through the noise, mind your business. Be better. Do better. Do the self-work. Your future self will thank you. Thanks for listening. Until next time, this is the Urban Lady Prepper signing off. I'm sure I've given you some things to think about as you go through the upcoming week. Has this episode resonated with you? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to click the link in the podcast description to get your free Essential Prepper checklist. While there, get one of my cool designs on a shirt, hat, mug, and more at my Redbubble store. Or you can always buy me a coffee or get a Jace case for your emergency medical needs. It helps support what I do, and I really appreciate it. Join me on the socials, especially on YouTube, where I'll be uploading videos for my blogs from urbanladyprepper.com. I appreciate your time with me. Stay safe, stay sharp, and be ready.